Hi there, this is Jason Renshaw from EnglishITutor.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to run you through a couple of different things that might help you improve your ability to handle question 1 in the TOEFL speaking section. Now I'm sure you've already gone over some of the basics of the question, the kinds of questions you're going to be asked, some of the tips that ETS gives you. But over the many years that I've been helping people with their TOEFL speaking, I found that the use of nice, reliable, clear templates for each question can make a really big difference to your performance. Because if you have a template which is like a strategic way to go about answering each question, if you sort of already know the order and the types of things that you need to say, it can really make you a lot more comfortable. It can stop you rushing your answer or running out of things to say. And if you feel confident about the topic development, how you develop the content of your answer and how you organize and sequence that, that allows you to be more relaxed. And if you are more relaxed, you're probably going to speak more clearly, and you're probably going to be able to pay a little bit more attention to the language that you use. So I think a lot of it comes back to how you develop the topic itself, because I think that has follow-on effects for other parts of your assessment, your delivery and your language use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by actually showing you the template that often appears in TOEFL practice books. And the template that's usually recommended in standard practice books sort of goes like this. Number one, they ask you to state who, what, where, or which, because independent question 1 will ask you to talk about a person, a place, an event, or a thing. Usually that's the format of the question. So most standard books will ask you to start by stating what you've chosen to talk about. They will then recommend, generally speaking, that you give a reason for that choice and you support that reason with details and or an example. And then they ask you to do that again, but with a second reason. And again with some sort of detail or example to support it. And then they say, well, give a conclusion at the end. Now, as I said, this is the kind of template that is recommended a lot all over the internet in a lot of preparation books, and I don't think it's a very good template. And here's a couple of reasons why. Number one, look, there really isn't enough time in 45 seconds, or 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. There really isn't enough time to explain two completely different reasons in lots of detail, and that can become quite stressful. So when you're stressed and you're trying to give two complete reasons and give lots of supporting examples and details for each one, you do run the risk of rushing your answer and damaging your grammar and pronunciation. Because you're trying to speak so quickly, you're going to make more language mistakes, you're going to mispronounce sounds and words more often because you are trying to say too much and in too much detail. It's very over formal and boring. This looks a lot like the way you would plan an essay. And look, this is a speaking test, and these are speaking questions. They're not essay questions. So it's probably not a good idea to use an essay-style response for a 45-second speaking question. And my last criticism of that template is that everybody is following that template, because they're all using the same preparation books and the same sorts of videos on YouTube and that sort of thing. Most people are going to give their answer in that kind of format, and you are going to sound just like everybody else who takes the test, which means there's no real chance of you standing out and sounding different and sounding unique. So that's why I don't think that template is a good one to follow. I think we need to do it a little bit differently. So I'm going to show you two different templates. They're very kind of closely related, but as per the other template, I do recommend in the first 5 or 10 seconds of your answer that you state very clearly who you or what or where or which thing you're going to talk about. If it asks you to talk about a place, say, well, a place that I think is a great place to go is boom, and just say it nice and clearly at the start. Now, the second part is where I recommend that you do it differently to the standard template, and that is describe this person, place, or thing. Give some sort of context for it. So if you're going to talk about a person, well, how do you know this person? How are they related to you? Or, how long have you known them? What kind of person is this? What kind of place is it? Is it close to where you live? Is it, where is it located in your country? It doesn't need to be a lot of detail. It's just a bit of context. It's sort of creating a scene for whatever it is you've chosen to talk about. Now, for many years now, I've been recommending that people use a description or, sort of a context in the second part of their answer. And it can be anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds. It could even be a little bit longer. But what I've found is people who follow this advice get good scores. Now, I've had hundreds of people follow this format, this template, and I've had hundreds of people email into me and say, wow, I got 4 out of 4 for this question, and they were following this template. So think about using some sort of contextual description. So something along the lines of, if the example was, talk about a place that you like to spend time in for your free time, and let's say you say that's the library, or an internet cafe, let's say with that, an internet cafe. And you could say, there's an internet cafe just down the road from where I live. It's not a really big one, and it's not usually too crowded. It's open most of the day and sometimes late at night. You notice how you've just sort of given a bit of a description of that place. Before you start going into reasons why you think that's a great place, you've just given a bit of context for it. You've set the scene, and that creates a really good impression on the listener. Once you've done that, then give one good reason for your choice and try to support that with an example. So when you've been doing your preparation for the question in the 15 seconds, hopefully you've come up with at least one good reason, and then you can give some sort of example to support that reason. So in the example of the internet cafe that I just gave, after you've described in very general terms that internet cafe, you can say, my main reason for doing this is because I like to use the internet a lot, and I like to do it away from my home. For example, I'm not going to be interrupted by my brothers or sisters. I'm not going to be interrupted by the other people I live with. I feel very free in this place because it's just me and I'm surrounded by strangers. And you notice how I've given an example that further describes that reason. So we want one good clear reason for why we've chosen this person, place or thing or event, and then we just back it up with a little bit of an example to paint an image or paint a scene in the listener's mind, so they get a clear idea of why we think that's the reason. And then in the last part of your answer, if you've got time, if you've still got 5 to 15 seconds left, and you're at this point, you could just mention a couple of other reasons, but don't go into detail. So in the example I just gave, it might be something like, and I also like the fact that the computers are really quick there, they're very fast, and they're upgraded a lot. That sort of thing. Or I also sometimes meet some of my friends there. Just quick extra reasons that you may have. Now, if you can't think of any or you don't have time for them, don't worry, because you've already stated the place, you've already described it, and you've given a reason for that. So these are just sort of like bonuses that you might add at the end if you have time. I have heard of people just doing the first 3 parts and getting a perfect score. It depends a lot on how natural you sound and how well you do that. Instead of a conclusion, you may also like to use what I just call a wrap-up. And that is, if you've got 5 or 10 seconds left, you might like to just say, and yeah, that's basically why I like to go to the internet cafe. And that sounds really nice and natural. That's how you would say it in a discussion. That's how you would say it if you were just sitting down and talking naturally in a tutorial or in a group discussion. It's not like a formal conclusion like, based on the fact that this place is close to my home and it has very good computers, that is the reason why I like to go to the internet cafe. That is not how people talk. It's not a debate. It's a fairly informal context. So try to be more natural. If you want to wrap it up just by saying, and yeah, I think that's basically why I like to go to this place. That shows much more fluency and natural language use. So look, that's the standard template that I recommend. You may like to play with that sort of sequence and format a little bit. One thing you might like to try, if you would like to be a bit experimental and a bit different, is instead of at the start saying who this is actually start with your description. Now, what do I mean by that? If I ask you to talk about a person who inspires you a lot, instead of saying a person who inspires me a lot is my mum, all right? You might like to say, I want you to think about a person who is kind, who is always there to support you when times are tough, knows who you are and what you're like, and is always there to give you the best advice. You notice how I'm describing this person? And then you could say, well, this person's my mum, and this is a person who's really inspired me. Do you see how I gave the description or the context first? So that you sort of build up the listener to the idea of who it is you're going to talk about. It is a little bit different, but it is still perfectly valid as an answer, and it is different. It's likely to make the test assessors say, wow, that was a different way of answering the question. I liked that. Because you're kind of drawing the listener in. If I gave the internet cafe example again, I could say, there's a place that's very close to where I live. It's very convenient. It has really fast computers, and it's a place where you can get there during the day or late at night. Well, this is my local internet cafe, and that's a place I like to go to when I want a bit of time to myself. You notice how I sort of built up to my topic. And that can be a very refreshing way of dealing with the question for the test assessors, and it's likely to make a good impression. And then again, you just go into a good reason for the choice and have any extra reasons or a wrap up at the end. So you notice the two templates I recommend there are very similar. It's just a matter of number 1 and 2 changing the order there. Generally speaking, the one on the left, where you state who it is you'd like to talk about and then give a bit of a context for them, that generally is a little bit easier to do more regularly. But if you get a question where the topic is fairly familiar to you and something very easy for you to talk about, you might like to start with your description first and build up to the topic or the person or the thing. So just something for you to think about and try out there. But those two templates, I've given those templates to hundreds of test users, and they have done very, very well with them, because they find, look, the timing seems to be a little bit more manageable this way. There's no rush to get two big, well-described reasons in there. It's descriptive, and it allows you to relax and sound nice and natural. So let's have a look at, the preparation time, because in order to use a template, the preparation time is absolutely part of how well you can apply that template. So you've got 15 seconds after you hear the topic. Now remember that you actually get more than 15 seconds, because the topic is read out, and if you can read it quicker than you can hear it, you'll get another extra couple of seconds while the reader is reading that out. You can start to take notes. Okay, so here's what I recommend you do on paper. First, just write who or where or what it is. Don't write it in detail. Try to keep it to one word, like my mum, internet cafe, and abbreviate any words. Just what you want here is just something to remind you, just something that helps you start to work through that topic. Then write down context. Now, when I say write down context, I don't mean write out your context that you're going to say. Just write the word context, because the idea is that you just want that reminder to talk about context or to talk about a description. So don't actually put in those details. Just write the word context to give you a nice clear signpost that that's what you're going to do at that point of your answer. And then, time allowing, and you should, because you should be able to just write the topic and the word context in a couple of seconds. Then try to jot down 2 to 3 reasons. Again, abbreviate the words, make them just 1 or 2 word answers. Don't try to write a full sentence. Whatever you do, do not ever write full sentences in this preparation time. That is a perfect way to not do that well. Just write down 1-2 words for each reason. Now, the reason I've said 3 reasons there is because, as I said in the template, you want one key reason, but you may not be sure yet which one's going to be easy for you to talk about in detail. So once you've sort of just brainstormed three quick reasons, and you don't have to use all three, remember, you could use as little as one, and then just follow up with one or two reasons at the end if you feel like it, if it seems appropriate. But go back to one of those three reasons and think about an example. Now, you don't necessarily need to write that example. You may be starting to run out of time, but just think about an example. I said one reason that an internet cafe was because I'm not going to get interrupted there by other people at home. And I might just think, let me think of an example. Look, I've got brother and a sister. They bother me all the time at home, but when I go there, just think your way through it so that when the preparation time is up, that you've just got that memory of how to give an example for that reason. Now, it may not be the first reason that's easiest to give an example for. It may be the second reason. And you'll notice that as you take notes, whatever reasons come out, you may find that the second one's actually easier to talk about than the first one. So in that case, you would give your topic, you would give a bit of a contextual description, and you would use that second reason there as your main reason, the one you're going to give some details and an example for. And then those other two reasons, number 1 and number 3, might be something that you just quickly mention at the end if you have time. So I hope that's been helpful. That's the TOEFL template for question 1 that I recommend. There are two sort of very closely related templates there that I recommend. You might like to watch the video again and just think your way through that a bit and try out those templates with a variety of sample questions and see how well they work for you. You may like to adapt them a little bit, but as I said, this is the template that I've been using for several years now for hundreds and hundreds of students, and they say it does work, and they have been getting good scores. So it might be something for you to sort of think about trying to use, because it may just make that difference on the day of the test. So keep that in mind. This is Jason Renshaw from EnglishITutor.com, and I hope you found all of that helpful. Good luck for your test.